You're imagining a giant, scaly predator walking across dry land like Tyrannosaurus rex. For decades, that's exactly how scientists imagined Spinosaurus too. Museum exhibits, books, movies, all showed the same terrifying hunter. But new fossil discoveries completely changed that image. Instead of a land predator, Spinosaurus appears to have spent much of its life around rivers. It had paddle-like feet, dense bones that helped it stay underwater, a crocodile-like snout filled with cone-shaped teeth, and perhaps the strangest feature of all, a massive sail rising from its back. Scientists still debate exactly how it hunted, but one thing is certain: the old picture of Spinosaurus was wrong. It wasn't simply another T-Rex, it was one of the strangest dinosaurs that ever lived, and that's only the first dinosaur on this list. The next one looks even more unbelievable. If someone described a dinosaur with giant feathers, a tiny head, a long neck, and claws longer than swords, you'd probably imagine a terrifying predator. That's exactly what scientists once thought. But Therizinosaurus completely shattered those expectations. Despite carrying the longest claws of any land animal ever discovered, it probably wasn't hunting other dinosaurs at all. Instead, it was mostly a plant eater. Those enormous claws may have helped it pull tree branches closer, reach high vegetation, or scare away predators without ever needing to fight. Its body was covered in feathers. Its belly was wide. Its beak was built for eating leaves, and its small head looked almost comical compared to its gigantic body. If you saw one alive today, you might think it looked more like a giant feathered sloth than a monster from the age of dinosaurs. It's one of evolution's strangest creations, a dinosaur armed like the world's deadliest hunter, but living more like a peaceful giant. Sometimes, the most unbelievable dinosaurs are the ones that completely break our expectations. Imagine discovering a dinosaur, knowing only its arms. That was the mystery of deinocheirus. In 1965, paleontologists uncovered a pair of gigantic fossilized arms, each stretched over 8 feet long. The hands ended in enormous curved claws. But there was one problem: the rest of the dinosaur was missing. For nearly half a century, scientists imagined a terrifying super predator. Some believed it was one of the largest meat-eating dinosaurs ever discovered. The giant claws certainly seemed to support that idea. Then, in 2014, everything changed. New fossils finally revealed the complete animal, and it looked nothing like anyone expected. Instead of a fearsome carnivore, deinocheirus had a duck-like bill, a huge hump on its back, long feathered arms, and a wide body built for life near rivers and swamps. It likely ate fish, plants, and almost anything else it could find. Not only did it look bizarre, it completely rewrote decades of scientific artwork. What began as 2 mysterious arms turned out to belong to one of the strangest dinosaurs ever discovered. Sometimes, the biggest surprise isn't finding a new dinosaur, it's realizing you've imagined it completely wrong. When you think of flying dinosaurs, you probably imagine feathers, just like modern birds. After all, that's how nature solved flight. Or so we thought. Then scientists discovered a tiny dinosaur called Yishi at first glance. It looked like an ordinary feathered dinosaur, but hidden inside its wrist was something completely unexpected, a long rod-like bone, unlike anything seen in other dinosaurs. Scientists realized this strange bone likely supported a wing membrane, similar to the wings of a bat. Instead of flying with feathers alone, Yishi may have glided through ancient forests using skin stretched between its arms and body. It was unlike any other dinosaur ever discovered. For decades, people believed dinosaurs only experimented with one kind of flight. Yishi proved evolution had tried something completely different. It wasn't the ancestor of modern birds. Its unique design eventually disappeared forever. But for a brief moment in history, nature tested a completely different way to conquer the skies. Sometimes, evolution doesn't follow a single path. Sometimes, it tries ideas so strange, they seem almost impossible to believe. If someone asked you to imagine a dinosaur, you'd probably picture scales, maybe feathers, but definitely not bristles. Meet Psittacosaurus, a small plant-eating dinosaur that lived over 100 million years ago. For years, scientists believed it was fairly ordinary. Then, one incredibly preserved fossil changed everything. Running along its tail, researchers discovered a row of long, stiff, bristle-like structures. They weren't feathers, they weren't scales. They were something completely different. No one knows exactly why Psittacosaurus evolved them. Perhaps they helped it attract a mate, warn rivals, or simply make the dinosaur appear larger when threatened, whatever their purpose. They gave this little dinosaur an appearance unlike almost anything else in prehistoric history, and that wasn't the only surprise. Scientists also found evidence that parts of its body were shaded differently, darker on top, lighter underneath, a camouflage pattern still seen in many animals today. Suddenly, Psittacosaurus no longer looked like a plain green reptile. It became a colorful, highly adapted dinosaur, with features nobody expected. Sometimes, it only takes one extraordinary fossil to completely change the way we picture an ancient animal. If you've ever imagined a giant meat-eating dinosaur, you probably pictured huge muscular arms. That's exactly what makes Carnotaurus so surprising. Its arms were unbelievably tiny. Even smaller than those of Tyrannosaurus rex, they were so short. Scientists believe they were almost useless for grabbing prey. So how did Carnotaurus become such a successful predator? It evolved in a completely different direction. Its legs were long, powerful, and built for speed. Many paleontologists believe Carnotaurus was one of the fastest large predatory dinosaurs ever discovered. It could sprint across open plains, closing the distance before its prey had time to escape. Then there were its horns, short, thick, and positioned just above its eyes. Unlike the massive horns of Triceratops, these weren't designed to stab enemies. Scientists think they were more likely used during battles with other Carnotaurus. As rivals pushed against each other to prove dominance, its narrow body, long legs, tiny arms, and bull-like horns made it look unlike any other large predator. It wasn't a miniature T-Rex. It wasn't a giant raptor. It was something entirely different. Carnotaurus proves that even among the biggest hunters, evolution was constantly experimenting with new designs. Sometimes, the strangest predator is also one of the fastest. For a long time, scientists believed feathers belonged to only one group of dinosaurs, the meat-eaters. After all, birds evolved from predatory dinosaurs, so it seemed to make sense. Then, a small dinosaur from Siberia completely changed that idea. Its name was Kulindadromeus, and unlike famous feathered hunters, it wasn't a predator at all. It was a peaceful plant eater, yet its fossil preserved something astonishing. Large parts of its body were covered with feather-like structures. Not just simple fuzz, but several different kinds of feather-like coverings. This discovery shocked paleontologists. If a plant-eating dinosaur had feathers, then feathers may have evolved much earlier than anyone imagined. Perhaps many kinds of dinosaurs, even those that never flew, were at least partially feathered. Suddenly, the old image of dinosaurs as giant green reptiles began to disappear. Instead, scientists started picturing prehistoric forests filled with dinosaurs covered in fuzz, quills, and colorful feathers. One small dinosaur from Siberia completely changed the way we imagine the prehistoric world. Sometimes, the biggest discoveries don't come from the biggest dinosaurs. They come from the ones almost nobody has ever heard of. Ask someone to describe Ankylosaurus, and they'll probably say, a dinosaur covered in armor. They're right, but that's only half the story. For years, movies and illustrations showed Ankylosaurus as a slow-moving reptile, dragging itself across the ground. Modern discoveries paint a very different picture. Its body wasn't simply covered with random plates. It was wrapped in an intricate suit of natural armor. Thick, bony plates were embedded throughout its skin. Sharp spikes protected its sides. Even its eyelids contained armor. And at the end of its muscular tail hung one of evolution's greatest weapons, a massive club made from solid bone. Scientists believe a single powerful swing could have shattered bones, perhaps even breaking the leg of a charging Tyrannosaurus rex. Instead of running from danger, Ankylosaurus stood its ground. It waited for predators to come close, then answered with one devastating strike, far from being a helpless walking fortress. It was an active, heavily armed defender. The image of Ankylosaurus has changed dramatically over the years. Not because the dinosaur changed, but because our understanding did. Sometimes, the toughest dinosaurs don't need sharp teeth to become legends. At first glance, Pegomastax looked almost harmless. It was tiny, only about the size of a house cat, and unlike giant predators, it spent its days eating plants. But if you looked closer, you'd notice something that made absolutely no sense. Inside its small beak were two long, sharp fangs. Plant-eating dinosaurs aren't supposed to have vampire-like teeth, yet Pegomastax did. As if that wasn't strange enough, scientists believe parts of its body were covered with stiff, porcupine-like bristles. When threatened, Those bristles may have stood upright, making the little dinosaur appear larger and far more dangerous. Instead of relying on size, Pegomastax relied on surprise. Sharp fangs, a bristly coat, and a body unlike almost any other dinosaur ever discovered. If you saw it today, you probably wouldn't even guess it was a dinosaur. It looked more like a strange mix of a parrot, a porcupine, and a tiny mammal. For years, people imagined all plant-eating dinosaurs as gentle, harmless creatures. Pegomastax proved nature had something much weirder in mind. Sometimes, the smallest dinosaurs are the ones that completely rewrite our imagination. Imagine asking someone to draw a long-necked dinosaur. They'd probably give it a smooth neck, a long tail, and nothing sticking out. That's exactly how scientists imagined them for decades. Then, they discovered Amargasaurus. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary plant eater until you noticed its neck. Running from the back of its head, all the way down its neck, were two perfectly parallel rows of towering spines. Some stretched over 2 feet long. Nothing like them had ever been seen before. At first, scientists couldn't agree on what they were looking at. Did the spines support a tall skin sail, similar to the one on Spinosaurus? Or were they covered in tough keratin, creating a forest of razor-sharp spikes? The debate continues even today. Either possibility makes Amargasaurus look nothing like the dinosaurs most people imagine. If it carried a sail, it would have appeared much taller and more impressive. If those spines were exposed, predators would have faced an intimidating wall of sharp points before they could even get close. Millions of years later, no one knows exactly which version is correct. But one thing is certain, Amargasaurus shattered the old image of long-necked dinosaurs as simple, gentle giants. It proved that even peaceful plant eaters could evolve some of the strangest appearances in Earth's history. Sometimes, the dinosaurs that look the most unbelievable are the ones that were completely real.